Let's begin the conversation in Nigeria, where the House of Representatives spokesman Akin Rotimi, in a statement, described a claim by the Nigerian Labour Congress NLC Assistant General Secretary Christopher Onyeka as baseless. Onyeka alleged that each lawmaker raked in the palliative sum of about 100 million naira from the federal government. They demand immediate retraction and a public apology from the NLC. And of course, Kingsley, Chime, legal practitioner, joins me from Lagos, Nigeria, to discuss this. Thank you so much for your time, Kingsley.
Thank you for having me, Dapo, and good evening, viewers.
Yeah, good evening. All right, so let's get straight to it. This particular claim by the NLC saying that lawmakers get a palliative of about 100 million naira, from the 70 billion, as alleged by them. How would you consider all of this, particularly when it comes to palliatives and the law, and also its distribution? How does it work?
Thank you once more, Mr. Dapo, for having me. I think ordinarily, one would assume or think that National Assembly, and when I mean National Assembly, I'm referring to the House of Representatives, and indeed the red chambers should be or ought to be acting as oversight function, providing oversight functions to the executives. But when allegations like this is being made, where the National Assembly, which comprises every nook and cranny of Nigeria being represented in the House, only turn around to betray that trust that Nigerians bestowed on them. Allegation by the Nigerian Labour Congress that 100 million each was given to each of the House of Rep member have been refuted by the lower chambers of the government. And ordinarily, I don't respond or have to make any kind of interventions in things like this. It still remains within the realm of allegation. And the House of Representatives, in all fairness to them, has refuted same. One would expect NLC to come up with a concrete proof or the source of their information to justify such statements. However, in all of this, what is playing out is that there's a kind of disconnect, disillusionment between the leaders, the legislators and Nigerians through the Nigerian Labour Congress over the manner in which the issue of palliatives is being handled. Of course, one is aware that the federal government has given about 5 billion naira to each of the 36 states and the FCT to share as palliatives. So one would think I'll be asking, what is the framework for the sharing of this money? Because essentially that the essence of this is to cushion the effect of the economic situation in Nigeria for an average Nigerian. So will this money trickle down to the intended beneficiaries? That is a different question. So both the allegation of NLC and the counter allegation of the House of Representatives is just showing a total lack of discipline and respect to constitutional authority upon which they are representing. So essentially, all of us were alive in this country in 2020 when COVID-19, changed the order of things, and the issue of that was the first time Nigerians began to hear about palliatives and subsidy and buffer, some of these adjectives. So we all know how it went down. At some point, some warehouses were found where some of these palliatives were stored and was being looted at the time. So it is based on that distrust that perhaps NLC is now raising concern that there is possibility that these people must have given to themselves about 100 million each, while they have given 5 billion for each of the states to share. And then a bag of rice, I don't know how they arrive at a bag of rice for every ward. So you can imagine how far this palliative can go on the average. And again,
before we even talk about, the breakdown in terms of, should these, allegations even have any form of semblance of truth to it, how it's shared and all of that. You used a particular word in your opening statement. You said there is some sort of disconnect between the House and the NLC. Would you like to shed more light on the context of that particular word, disconnect?
Yes, I think I'm aware that sometime last month there were presidential steering committee that was set up by President Tinubu to determine how the palliative government is going to make an intervention following the economic crisis in Nigeria. NLC has raised concern that the steering committee didn't come up with anything tangible. And indeed, that the introduction of 5 billion to states and some bags of rice, will not really make any changes in light of Nigeria. And of course, there have been threats for them to embark on industrial action. Just a few weeks ago or last week, Labour went on 2 weeks warning strike. So over the years, there has always been a cat and dog relationship between the NLC and the government. And all of the time, the agreements reached at each situation will be breached by the federal government. So that has created that disconnect and disillusionment, not just among the labor leaders or NLC, but Nigerians in general and their leaders. So they now, every move by the federal government is being viewed with suspicious eyes. So suspicion perhaps may have informed the announcement of Labour that 100 billion was, 100 million was given to each of the legislators. I wouldn't know, that allegation has not been substantiated. So I wouldn't really speak authoritatively about that.
All right, you said that due to the lack of trust, virtually every move by the government, through probably any of its arms, is usually being viewed critically. In your words, you said suspiciously. How do you think the government itself of the day can actually, will I use the word, build that bridge of trust between itself, the citizens, and also, unions like the NLC?
Yes, I think there should be a commitment on the part of government. There must be a kind of sincerity or purpose. It is not just enough that at every interval, actions of government, they don't really follow even their own promises or their agreements. So it's now for the government to begin to take Nigerians and citizens more seriously, take their words more seriously, show more commitment, show more empathy on Nigeria, because the buffet or the palliatives that what is talking about really is not for the house members or the people in government. It's supposed to trickle down to the average man on the street who is in need of this. But if you look at over the years how both the federal government and our leaders has treated the citizens, it's unfair. So that has created that gap. So it's important they begin to close that gap, show more commitment, more sincerity of purpose, and show more sympathy for the people. If you give 5 billion naira, for instance, to a state and palliatives, how is this money going to be shared? And we are aware that most of the governors Nigeria, there's election petition, in their respective states. So there may be possibilities that one or two of the governors, for instance, may not reclaim the seat. And then the 5 billion that government has allocated for the people will go to nothing. That money can never be accounted for. It was never contained in any budget, be it in the federal and the state government. So anybody can say, we gave us money and we shared it to it.
Now, accountability, I mean,
unverified.
You've said a striking word here. You used the word accountability, which of course is key in all of this. How do you ensure that the palliative or whatever is being distributed gets to those that really need it? And we know that over time, accountability has been an issue in Nigeria. What is the role of the judiciary in all of this to ensure that, there is accountability, or what arm of government should we say, okay, this should be your responsibility to ensure that, special interventions like this are accounted for?
Well, I think judiciary really is, their own role is more of an interpretation of an action that perhaps may have gone contrary to the provisions of the law. So it's more of an interpretative roles. The critical role is when it has to do with government actions and inactions, fall on the executive and the legislators. Legislators ought to be offering supervisory role to the executive, like checks and balances, ensuring that things are well planned and done as the executive has proposed. It is only when there is an issue arising from that judicial may be called in question to make an intervention. So essentially, the executive, like I said, must show commitment. The leadership or the House of Representatives and legislators in general must stand up to their responsibilities. It is no longer a period of time where you have to stamp every action of the executive. You must do your critical role in ensuring that money is budgeted for certain things must be utilized for the purpose in which it was budgeted for. But where you see legislators and the executive, playing romance, it will call for action and it also calls for concern. Because ordinarily, the legislators should be the one to supervise the implementation of the sharing of palliatives, having a mechanism or guidelines. For instance, there should be, I'm sure they have committee within the green chambers to oversee the actual implementation of these palliatives, to the lowest, to the average Nigerian, not just when it gets to the states. You now say that after all, the back of rice allocated to this state, has gotten to the state. No, to get to the point of sharing, particularly with respect to the 5 billion that was given to government, there must be a list, there must be account numbers where these monies were paid into, which also will be verifiable. It is not just enough to dole out money to state governors and give them the liberty to determine how these monies are going to be shared. So unless and until we begin to do things right, citizens will continue to look at their leaders with suspicious eyes.
All right, Kingsley, because we're pressed with time, I have 2 questions I would ask in quick succession, right? The first being the House, has requested that the NLC retract and apologize, right, publicly. Now, what could be the implication, particularly legal implication, if they fail to do so? And also, the NLC is threatening another strike action. What's your take generally?
Well, on the issue of asking the NLC to draw their statement, of course, that may be rebellious because it's creating the impression that the House of Rep members are either dishonest or do not have the intention of Nigerians at heart. So that may be viewed from the angle of defamation. But of course, justification is a defense in such actions. That is why in my introduction, I said that NLC has the burden has shifted to them to be able to justify how they arrive at this figure and the source of their information. But that is for them to deal with. I don't think I got your second question quickly, please.
Now, my second question is the NLC is threatening another strike action. What's your take? I mean, given the first, we saw the outcome of the first, the recent strike action that's, the 2-day action that happened across the nation. And right now, they are saying Nigerians should gear up for another one, which, of course, could be the mother, of strike actions. What's your take in terms of achieving the result or the objective of the strike in itself?
Well, honestly, I wouldn't know what NLC may achieve, but the truth of the matter is that is the only language government listens to or understands. Over the years, you see them call for meetings. At the end of the meeting, they end up with deadlocks. So it's only when economic activities are being paralyzed through industrial action that government will begin to listen to them. That's, as far as I'm concerned, that remains the only positive action that federal government listens to. But I think we should begin to see things different because industrial action does not just affect the government, it also affects private individuals and organizations. So that is why I also advocated that federal government should begin to show more commitment, so that citizens should begin to trust them more, and this issue of dichotomy or distrust among the citizens and the government would be eliminated.
All right, thank you so much for your time, Kingsley Chime, legal practitioner joining from Lagos, Nigeria.
Thank you for having me.
All right.